Hello everyone, it is Catherine Massell here, Ascending Earth Creatrix, Master Intuitive Energy Healer and Spiritual Growth Catalyst. Hello, happy Thursday. I wanted to jump on live today and talk. I'm going to be doing a series of talks about this. How do we begin to close the gap on where we are right now versus where we want to be in terms of having ascended consciousness. And when I say ascended consciousness, what I'm talking about specifically is the creative state of being. Hi Angela, hello again. We are, as humans, finding ourselves more and more as we get in a more hectic, more busy society where we're kind of being duped into this idea that the busier we are, the more productive we are. Those things don't always go hand in hand. Hi, Stephanie. And Stephanie and I were just talking about this today, that we find ourselves in the survival state. And the survival state of consciousness is rife with these lower vibration emotions. So if we are finding ourselves thinking thoughts, having feelings throughout our day that are making us feel lack or want, or like we are struggling, suffering, like we're in chaos, turmoil, grief, loss. We are in these very, very low frequency vibrations that equate us to a level of mind and a level of body that is the survival state. And so in this survival state of consciousness, this is actually something that allows us to be more animal rather than divine. This is a very primitive state when we find ourselves on a very low vibrational end of the emotional spectrum throughout most of our day. And many of us find ourselves here. We find that, or it has been found, that the average human has about 70,000 thoughts a day. And about 80% of those thoughts tend to go to the negative. Meaning we're focused on all of those emotions that I just mentioned a moment ago. That sense of depression or frustration or suffering or struggling. And we are constantly in this mode of feeling the absence of something. We're not necessarily vibrating with the energy of something that is fulfilling or meaningful, but rather taking us away from our divinity. That would be a really good way to describe it. So this lower frequency vibration we find ourselves in, this survival state, not only is that causing progressive deterioration of the body over time, the organs and the tissues, the cells in the body, but it was never meant to be a state of being that was chronic or long-term. The way we're built as human beings, this fight or flight response that is brilliant wiring in terms of what it's there to really do, which is get us out of a moment of peril. But we're not supposed to stay in that state all day, every day. And the sad truth is that most of humanity finds itself resonating with these energies all day, every day. And what this does is this undue stress then that is put on the body, it causes the mind to not evolve. We stay in this place of stagnation. And the wiring of the brain does not progress, it doesn't evolve, because we're constantly being wired for survival. So every day we might wake up with fresh new energy. But if our thoughts automatically go to all the things that we have to do to fill up our day, to meet the obligations of being us, to meet the busyness of being us, we automatically find ourselves having thoughts that take us to feelings then, because we're on a constant thought and feeling feedback loop of, I just got to get through this day. I just have to get through this hour. I have to get through work. I have to get through dinner. I have to get through the night so I can go to sleep. It's this constant crisis management mode. We were never meant to stay in this place of stagnation. And when we stagnate as human beings, we don't evolve. And if we don't evolve the brain specifically, many of us who are asking for this process of ascending, meaning moving into this higher state of awareness, how I think of ascension is being in this resonance of the highest idealized version of who we are right now, not waiting for something to happen, not for, this moment where it's like, poof, you've ascended, great, you've moved beyond survival consciousness and you're this divine being and you are actualizing your divinity. That doesn't happen with just a series of energy activations. I mean, energy activations are wonderful. Believe me, if you followed me for some time, you know that I have many energy activations. I'm a sacred soul alignment practitioner. I do a lot of energy alignments and activations and awakenings. But this is only one piece of the puzzle if we are asking to ascend. When we ascend, we are asking to have an ascended state of being. We don't leave any part of us behind. And what many of us are doing by just focusing on like this feeling of having this energy activation, and let's just say you are, connecting with Archangel Jophiel, or you are connecting with Ascended Master Saint Germain, and it feels wonderful. You feel expanded. You feel great. You may even have an epiphany, a revelation. You may uncover something about you that's very, very revelatory and wonderful, and it expands you. But then after the energy activation, you go right back to that same frame of mind, those same thoughts, those same feelings, those same beliefs, those same stories that you've told yourself over a lifetime. So what we were talking about today in my Evolve and Expand course is that you're in this constant place then of reminding yourself. And reminding is the perfect word, because you're going back to that same state of mind, that same state of being then, as your past. And you are bringing your past into the present each day anew until something gets consciously redirected in the brain. So many of us forget that when we ascend, the brain comes along with us too. The body is already becoming more crystalline in structure. This is already happening. The brain, however, needs our conscious redirection to change the programming, to change the coding. This must be a consciously directed effort. And when I say effort, I'm not talking about struggle. I'm saying it's a gentle, conscious redirect of how you think every day, how you feel every day, because your thoughts and your feelings are inextricably intertwined. So when you change your thoughts, naturally your feelings will follow. So if you think about the example that I shared in that the average human being has about 70,000 thoughts a day, 80% of those being negative. What if you changed even half that? What if you changed, consciously redirected your thoughts so that they were at least half, maybe 40% negative instead of 80% negative? How much do you think your life would change? How much do you think that would reflect in your external reality? I can tell you from leading my private and my group clients through this process, this method that I share with them, that it changes a lot. And what I invite my clients to do is look at one thing they want to change. Let's just say one emotion that they want to unmemorize. What happens when you just work on that one thing? Because everybody, when they first start this work with me, they're like, but I have like 5 things I want to change. That's great. You can use this method and apply it to each one of those. But here's what happens. When you decide to unmemorize and lose your emotional addiction to a feeling that is your go-to feeling all the time, let's just say it was mine, which was lack, okay? When you change that and you apply this method that I share with you, over 8 weeks, here's what happens. All of those emotions that are associated or that I associated with lack also naturally fall away and dissolve. Futility, desperation, urgency, frustration, anger, anguish. Did I say futility? Futility, okay? All of those fragmentary emotions, those kind of offshoot emotions, they fall away too. And when that happens, everything changes. Because when you are consciously redirecting your thoughts and your feelings, what ends up happening is that your internal reality, your internal state of being, becomes so much greater than your physical environment. And what our physical environment is doing to us, and kind of for us every day, is it's providing this constant sensory feedback loop that through touch, taste, smelling, sight, hearing, we are getting feedback from our environment telling us who we think we are. It's allowing us to believe we are these people that largely is an illusion. It's not really real. But we've allowed ourselves through the sensory feedback of our outer environment to believe and to wire the mind to be this perfect match to our outer reality. But what if I told you that that's totally false? What if I told you that that's totally an illusion and that you can change it? And that not changing that, not consciously redirecting it, is exactly what keeps you in 3D consciousness, and it keeps the brain from evolving. When we can learn how to tap into the quantum field of mind, which is truly the creative state, okay? So what I've illustrated, what I've talked about, is the survival state consciousness, meaning that kind of constant crisis management mode that most of us find ourselves in on the daily, okay? That is not inducive to being creative. That does not unleash your creativity. It does not open up the fount of inspiration, divine inspiration, that is this natural fount and spring of constant flow of energy within you. When you are in a survival state, your perception to that quantum field of mind that holds the creative state is veiled to you. Meaning you are so focused on the busyness of being you, tackling all those tasks, answering that kind of call and response to all the sensory feedback in your external environment. You are so focused on that you are not focused on being a creative being. In a sense, if you ask me, you are negating your divinity. But when we learn to tap into this quantum field of mind, which it can be interchanged with the creative state, they're both the same thing for me, we evolve the brain. Staying stuck in a survival state of consciousness, you are more animal and less divine. Hi, Patrice. I didn't even see you here. Hello. And living in this stress, the turmoil, the trauma, the fear, the depression, the frustration, the urgency, the desperation, the aggression, the lack, the suffering, the struggle, the guilt, the shame, all of that we equate with this low vibrational state of survival consciousness. We are in that chronic long-term state of being, and many of us find ourselves there. We are not evolving as humanity, and this ascension process that we're asking for, this ascension journey that we are asking to be on, and we're hoping that a series of energy activations or alignments is going to take us there, that is only part of the journey. And if you don't rewire the brain, if you don't consciously redirect the programming and the hardwiring of the brain, you are not including in this ascension process your mind. Your mind goes with you. Think of your body as becoming more crystalline in structure with each and every activation that you do, each energy alignment. But you're going back to the same survival state after the afterglow of this wonderful feeling of this energy activation wears off. Where are you? Going back to the same struggles, the same dilemmas, the same crises, going back to this energy of like having to put out fires all the time. You are negating all the good work that you did when you had that energy activation. You must evolve the brain. It goes with us on this ascension journey. You can't ignore it. What you're ignoring then is your evolution, your evolutionary process in this journey of human awakening. And you are ignoring the fact that this is part of the ascension process. You cannot achieve ascension without this part of the puzzle. This primitive state that we find ourselves in, this kind of survival state, if we don't learn how to develop the self-awareness, the self-realization, to move ourselves out of these limited states of being, we limit our evolution and we ultimately limit our ascension. And so how do you begin to close the gap? on being where you are in the survival state and moving into where you want to be, really jumping on, completely and fully from a place of wholeness, the whole self, holistically. How do you jump into this process of closing the gap from where you are and where you want to be? How do you access that creative state? Well, you have to access a different level of mind. And the way you access this different level of mind is you withdraw the senses. So remember what I said in the beginning, we talk about that sensory feedback loop. Through the 5 cognitive senses of see, taste, touch, hear, and smell, we're getting this constant feedback loop about our outer reality, our external environment, that is telling us who we are. And because we believe it, and we buy and sell this lie or this illusion to ourselves, we wire our inner world to match that outer reality. But it works the other way too. If we rewire our inner reality, eventually the external reality shows up to match it. But this doesn't happen through a bunch of just energy activations. This is not a passive process. To evolve the brain, we have to be consciously redirecting our thoughts, our feelings. We have to achieve such a high vibratory rate of self-awareness, self-realization, where we can radically accept where we are, who we are, and say, this is something I wish to change. I prefer a different reality. And then take steps to change that. Here's something that happens with the clients that I've worked with. Within 6 to 8 weeks, everything changes when you start adopting this creative state, when you go into this creative state daily. Okay? It has to be, again, a conscious, directed effort. You have to make this ritual. You have to make it ceremony. This is something that you must do. It is not passive. But when you do this, you are actually at the same time, while you're releasing and purging and in a sense, unbecoming the old you, the past self, and severing all of the cords to the past self that you keep bringing into the present, while you're doing that, simultaneously, you are actively creating a whole new reality. So you change your entire personal reality. Now, granted, this is not for everyone. This is intense. And the changes happen very quickly. So I only share this with people who are ready for this level of, and it's not upheaval, it's not turmoil. It is a complete transformation of your personal reality, your identity, and your personality. Deliberately. Now, this is happening for some of us anyway, because what we're being called to do, what we're asking for in the world, we're asking for, through having very keen desires and intentions at this point, we're asking for, in essence, a whole different reality. But we are kind of ignoring the self-deception about the fact that we can't bring this into being while we're still being the old self. Something's got to give. And it usually means your new life is going to cost you your old one. And for many of us, that's okay. But realize that if this is what you're asking for and your heart is really behind it, it doesn't have to be at the expense of your sanity. It doesn't have to be at the expense of feeling grief and sorrow and loss, grieving for this lost part of self that you'll never reclaim because you weren't ready to let it go. This can be a really deliberate process. And the method that I teach is a very, very deliberate process. Now, that being said, losing the old self, kind of unbecoming the old you, unbeing the old you, can be painful. Because from an ego perspective, we're kind of wired to lose who we were. Wired to feel a loss when something changes and we become a different person. However, if you are doing this with a place of complete guidance and support and mentorship, it becomes a lot less caustic. It's a lot less of a shock to the system, especially if the second you are losing the old self or unbeing the old self, you are creating a new. Literally in the same moment, in the same beat that you are losing some part of the old self, you are creating something new to energetically fill that void. This is hard to do if we're the only ones doing it for ourselves. You can do it that way. I don't advise it. That's the way I did it. It's much better to have great guidance and support and someone who's really an ambassador through this process and can see the pitfalls that maybe you don't see and can lovingly and very gracefully guide you through that. So that you're losing something, you're shifting, you're releasing something, but you're creating right away. And so transformation happens very, very fast if you are working in the creative state this way. And in fact, in 6 to 8 weeks, the clients that I've worked with in private VIP sessions, the clients that I've worked with in group sessions, we have made very, very, very quick progress doing this work. Some of my private clients, because when we're working one-on-one, obviously it's a little more intense, we can work on a few different things at once. And the changes for one of the women I've only been working with for 3 weeks, everything shifted in her life. And she kind of blew things up deliberately, but she was ready for that. She knew that was going to happen. She was ready to take the steps to move through that and to keep creating while releasing. This is really important because you kind of lose momentum and you can get easily caught up in the ego mind, in the survival state mind, if you're not actively creating as you're releasing. So that's why it's great to have support and guidance through this process, because otherwise you get in your own head too much and it can get ugly. So what I'm doing is I have one-on-one sessions. I have one one-on-one session where I'm taking you through this over 8 weeks. I have spots open for 5 women to work with me in a group in a very small container where we go very deep with this work, and things that you have wanted to shift for a really long time shift very, very quickly. So you have to be prepared for that. That's what I tell the people who are ready to do this work. I ask them, are you really ready? Because everything changes very, very quickly. So you have to get clear on not only what it is that you want to release, but you must have really super duper high levels of clarity about what it is you want to create. How do you want to feel? What is the feeling you're searching for? How do you want to wake up and feel every single day? What do you want your life to look like? What is the perfect day in your life? What does that look like? Better yet, what does it feel like? So you must get clear, because like I said, as we're releasing, simultaneously we're creating. So for the next group course of this that I'm teaching that starts up on, I think I'm going to do February 7th. We start that. It's only open to 5 women. The investment is $1,500. The other option is to work with me one-on-one and do this work. That is $3,000, and that is 8 weeks. The 5 women course, that's 6 weeks. The other option is to get in Wealth Consciousness Collective if you want to use these tools just to focus on money, wealth, and financial well-being. We already completed our first round of the Wealth Consciousness Collective. We're starting up again on February 1st. This is going to be a little more intense than the last round. Our beta round was to kind of get an idea of how everybody functions in the space and what optimized their shifts. Now that I have an idea of that, we're going to take the processes, the method that I shared, to a little more of an intense level to get faster turnaround time and faster results. So there it is. I'm going to be talking about this throughout the week. I really want to fill up this small group of 5 women. So if you feel called to this work and you're ready for this level of transformation, you have to be ready to show up and do the work. This is not passive, okay? There are no tourists here in this group. There are no passengers. You can't be a wallflower in your own life because that's what you're changing, your own life. So I would love to have you join me. Reach out to me. You can actually comment on this live, or you can go ahead and direct message me. But I want to wish you all so much love and peace. Thanks for watching. Mwah. Bye-bye.